Next on Unsolved Mysteries, a 17-year-old boy disappears after a party. His body is discovered in a ravine. No one knows how or why he died. Franklin Floyd claims to love his son, but why did he kidnap the boy? And why does he refuse to tell authorities where they can find him? A serial killer offers a helping hand on the highway, then kidnaps and murders his victims. And two mothers believe their children who died tragically have spoken to them from beyond the grave. There is nothing like a good mystery, and they're even better when they're true. I'm Dennis Farina. Join me, won't you? This is Michael Hughes. He is 6 years old in this picture, and he's missing. Michael was living with foster parents when he was kidnapped by Franklin Floyd, who claims to be his father.
You're acting like I walked up to a McDonald's and took a strange boy and walked off with him. And that's where you're wrong.
Actually, Franklin Delano Floyd is not the father of Michael Hughes. In fact, Floyd was convicted of kidnapping Michael and was sentenced to more than 50 years in prison. Floyd insists the boy is alive and safe, but he refuses to tell anyone where Michael is or who is taking care of him. This case against Franklin Floyd and Michael Hughes is one of the most bizarre we have ever profiled. It's a twisted tale of cruelty and self-delusion that defies belief. One fall morning, Franklin Floyd walked into Principal James Davis's office at an elementary school in Oklahoma City. He claimed to be the father of 6-year-old Michael Hughes.
He came in, he was acting rather nervous. He said, "What I'm doing is very difficult." He said, "I'm ready to die. If you don't help me, you won't live either."
Floyd pulled out a gun. He threatened to kill Principal James Davis if he didn't take Floyd to see Michael immediately. Floyd followed the principal down this hallway to Michael's classroom. He then forced them both into the principal's pickup truck. Floyd ordered James to drive out to the country.
Then when we got down here a ways, he told me to stop. And he had me to get out of the truck and go into the woods. He left Michael in the truck, and he followed me into the woods.
Floyd handcuffed James to a tree and left. James was rescued several hours later, but for the next 2 months, there was no sign of either Franklin Floyd or Michael Hughes. Floyd was finally arrested in Louisville, Kentucky, but Michael was nowhere to be found. When authorities dug into Floyd's background, they discovered a trail of pathological behavior that began long before Michael. Some 20 years earlier, Floyd had settled in Oklahoma City using the name Trenton B. Davis. Floyd had a young girl in tow. He told everyone that she was his daughter, Suzanne. Floyd moved away 3 years later, and for the next decade took Suzanne from town to town, often using an alias. When Suzanne turned 17, she gave birth to Michael. Floyd claimed to be the boy's father. He then married Suzanne, the girl he had been presenting as his daughter. When Michael was 2, Suzanne was killed in a mysterious hit-and-run accident. Though he was never charged, the prime suspect was none other than Franklin Floyd. After Suzanne's death, Floyd left Michael in foster care and disappeared. Michael's foster parents remember him as a child with many difficulties.
He was not up to grade for his age. He didn't have muscle control like he should have. He did not talk at all. He was very hysterical.
He was delayed
That's the
so
word.
severely that he was in an infant STEM class, and he tested out at 9 months.
Floyd was arrested on a parole violation 6 months after leaving Michael. A routine blood test revealed that Floyd was not Michael's biological father.
I want to plead for the return of my son, who I love with all my heart. I have never harmed my son, and the case has been reversed by the Supreme Court.
When Floyd got out of jail, he asked that Michael be given back to him, but his request was denied.
I don't need the state's money for these errors.
6 months later, Floyd kidnapped Michael from his first-grade classroom, and Michael has not been seen since.
We would like to have some information from the public indicating that this child has been seen out there, is out there somewhere, or they may know something about him being assaulted or possibly murdered. That's what our interest is.
But Floyd would not reveal Michael's location.
It's none of your damn business where he's at. You don't have a right to love him, care for him, and cherish him, because he ain't yours.
From the start, the case of Michael Hughes has been full of disturbing twists and turns. Now, there is one more. Authorities learned that Michael's mother, Suzanne, was not Floyd's biological daughter after all. In fact, she too may have been kidnapped by Floyd when she was a child.
That's one of the biggest mysteries that we have in this case as to who this girl is. We have absolutely no idea. We know that she is not the biological daughter of Mr. Floyd, and we feel that there's a very good possibility that this young girl may have been abducted or kidnapped when she was probably 3-4 years of age, and we would like to find out her true identity. We don't know that.
I'm gonna tell you right now, I did her a favor. She was abandoned to me, and I raised her. If I actually told you and you believed it, or I could prove it to you, you know what you'd do? You'd try to pin a medal on me for taking her.
Authorities were able to pin a murder charge on Franklin Floyd in a separate case, the killing of a 19-year-old named Cheryl Cameso. Floyd was sentenced to death for that crime. But the fate of Michael Hughes remains a mystery. Nor have investigators been able to determine the real identity of the young woman known as Suzanne Davis. Update. There are new developments in this case. Here's one of our staff with details.
When she was just shy of her 21st birthday, Suzanne was tragically struck and killed by a hit-and-run driver in Oklahoma City in 1990. The investigation into her death revealed that her real name was Suzanne Marie Savakis, and that she had indeed been kidnapped by Franklin Floyd as a child. The FBI reopened Michael's missing person case in 2013. Eventually, Floyd told investigators what happened to Michael Hughes. Floyd murdered the first grader on the very same day he had kidnapped him. The case has now been closed by the FBI.
Next, a killer claiming to be a good Samaritan targets unsuspecting female drivers.
Stop it!
As children, we're taught never to get into a car with a stranger. As adults, we sometimes forget that lesson, even though it's a lesson that might mean the difference between life and death. Baltimore, Maryland.
I'm going right to the mall. I'll call you when I get there.
All right, how are you getting there?
495 to 66 to 29 straight to Charlottesville.
All right, you got a full tank of gas?
I filled it last night.
Good, love you.
I love you.
Early one spring morning, Alicia Showalter Reynolds said goodbye to her husband and left home. It was a Saturday around 7:30 a.m.
Bye.
Alicia planned to drive more than 150 miles to spend the day shopping with her mother in Charlottesville, Virginia. She left early, giving herself plenty of time to be at the mall by 10:30. Alicia's mother arrived on time, expecting her daughter at any moment. But when Alicia was late, Sadie Showalter became worried.
Right about 11 o'clock, she wasn't there, and I said, "This is not like Alicia. I wonder what's going on." But I made myself wait till 11:15, and I then finally called her husband, called Mark.
Have you heard from Alicia? No, I've been waiting. It's over a half hour. At that point, I said, you know, the weather is kind of bad this morning. You know, there was a little fog, there was a little drizzle. Could have been some slick roads. Maybe she just slowed down a little bit, or, you know, give her a little while and give me a call back.
Sadie continued to wait. An hour passed, then 2, but Alicia never showed up. At 6 that evening, a Virginia state trooper found Alicia's car abandoned along a highway near Culpeper, Virginia, 50 miles from the shopping mall. A white paper napkin had been tucked under the windshield wiper, a commonly used signal for car trouble. When the car was examined, however, there were no mechanical problems.
My gut reaction immediately was that she was gone, that somebody had abducted her and taken her.
I feared the worst, but we were told by many, many folks to hope for the best.
Now we have an update on our top story tonight. As we told you, 25-year-old Alicia Reynolds disappeared this weekend. Her abandoned car was...
The next day, the local news began broadcasting reports of Alicia's disappearance.
You didn't come through here Saturday morning?
No, not till afternoon, till supper.
Okay, thank you.
Police set up a roadblock where Alicia's car was found, hoping to track down people who may have seen something. At least 3 people claimed they saw Alicia talking to a clean-cut white man with a dark-colored pickup truck. And close to 20 women called to say that they had recently been approached on the same highway by a man fitting that exact description. Police began to realize that whatever had happened to Alicia might have been a nightmarish plot that had been evolving for weeks.
Most of the witnesses talked about a man who would come up behind them or beside them in a dark, small pickup truck, flashing his headlights, honking his horn, looking in any way he could to attract their attention.
Hey, lady, pull over! There's something wrong with your car!
Most of the women that did have some concern for their vehicle did manage to pull off to the side of the road. He immediately jumps underneath the vehicle, conducts an examination, comes out and then engages them in a conversation, a very polite conversation, about the mechanical difficulties that he has allegedly uncovered.
At that point, the helpful stranger usually offered to drive the woman to the nearest phone.
This is it. There's a phone right inside.
Okay, great.
At least 2 women accepted his offer, and nothing happened to them.
Bye.
Other women found the stranger to be anything but kind and courteous.
Some of the women would not pull over for him, but merely went to the next exit or to their destination and had someone else look at their vehicle.
Pull over, lady, your car!
The only instances where we have found that the individual became agitated were those instances where women either refused his assistance or refused to pull over for him. And in those instances, there was a display of anger by him, such as pounding his fist on the steering wheel or murmuring things under his breath.
Looking at all of the stops, I think we pretty much all agree that he was getting his courage up, if you will. He was practicing, getting comfortable in what he was doing with stopping these ladies until he found someone that trusted him enough for him to carry forward what he intended to do.
1 week before Alicia disappeared, a woman driving in the neighboring county apparently fell for the same trick.
I didn't mean to scare you, but there's something wrong with your car. There's sparks coming out of the back of your car. So,
Sparks?
Yes.
She said from the first moment she met him, he was soft-spoken. He seemed to be trustworthy. She had no problem with it at all. And she knew that she needed a ride home. She didn't know how to get home, so she accepted the ride.
You know, I really appreciate your taking me to the gas station. I don't know what I would have done.
Hey, no problem. Glad to help out.
Why are we slowing down?
I just can't see anything out of this windshield that defrosts.
As they were going along the road, he would slow down and make the excuse that he couldn't see because of the vehicles behind him, and he pulled off the road. He did this 3 times. We believe that he was trying to establish a place to do something.
Look, if you could just take me to a phone, I can just make a phone call. Stop it! What are you doing?
She became very frightened. She fought him, and he decided he didn't want to fight with her, so he pushed her away.
Get out of here!
woman broke her ankle, but she got away. 7 days later, Alicia Reynolds was not so lucky. 2 months after that, her body was found in a wooded area 15 miles southeast of Culpeper. She had been murdered, perhaps on the same day that she had disappeared.
I don't want it to happen to somebody else. That's really my main concern for the capture of the guy. I don't want to hear about another husband who lost his wife or another father and mother who lost their daughter. That's too much.
There is a likelihood that the individual has fled this area, possibly the state, and may be in another community now where he may be preparing to start the same type of behavior again.
Authorities were able to create this composite of the suspect. He is 5 feet 10 inches to 6 feet tall with a medium build. His hair is reddish brown, and he tends to brush it back frequently with his left hand. He sometimes uses the name Larry Breeden. If you have any information about this man or the murder of Alicia Showalter Reynolds, please log on to our website at unsolved.com. Coming up, the body of a missing teenager is left where it can be easily discovered. But who put the corpse in place, and what do they know about the teen's mysterious death? Newburgh Heights, Ohio. One fall day, 3 young boys make a frightening discovery.
Wow, is it a dummy?
Other than some scratches and bruises, the body shows no obvious sign of injury. One tennis shoe is found in a nearby pile of rocks. The other shoe is missing.
I think it's real. Let's get out of here.
Several hours later, the body is identified as 17-year-old Kurt Sova. An autopsy reveals that he died no more than a day and a half before his body was found. Yet his parents reported him missing 5 days earlier. So, where was Kurt Sova during those 5 days that he was missing? How did he die and where was he killed? For Kurt's parents, these lingering questions make his tragic death even more painful. Kurt lived with his parents in this quiet neighborhood. He was the youngest of 4 boys and the closest to his parents.
He never had any trouble with the neighbors. I never had any trouble with him in school. I never had any trouble with him with the police. That's why I can't understand what happened.
Kurt left home for the last time late on a Friday afternoon. 1 block from his house, he met up with a friend.
How you doing? Nothing much. How about you?
Hey, party tonight.
Yeah, where?
At Sue's house. Let's hit it.
Tonight?
It was not like him to be gone overnight. It was not like him to stay out after 10, 10:30, 11 o'clock the latest, and that was only when we knew where he was. This night, he just never came home.
When Kurt wasn't home by Saturday morning, his parents began calling his friends. Kurt's father, Ken, searched for him around the neighborhood. There was no sign of Kurt Sova. On Sunday, the Sovas registered Kurt as a missing person with the police. Meanwhile, his mother, Dorothy, covered the neighborhood with missing persons flyers.
Oh, we searched the ravines, searched the schoolyards. I even went so far as to search dumpsters looking for him.
On Sunday afternoon, Dorothy learned that Kurt had been at a party on Friday night at a duplex less than 2 miles from where the Sovas lived. The party was given by a girl named Susan.
Yeah? Are you Susan? No, Susan isn't here right now.
When I went there, the girl who had the party was not there. It was another girl.
Could you possibly have Susan call me when she gets home? Tell her it's really important. Sure.
When the girl returned home, she called me, and she said she never saw my son and she had no party.
But a pizza delivery man contradicted Susan. He stated that there had been a party at the duplex on Friday night. Dorothy contacted Susan again, and this time she admitted that Kurt had been there. Susan also said that more than a dozen people had stopped by. Some of them were older than Kurt, and most of them were people he had never met. Susan also told Dorothy that Kurt had been drinking heavily. Those who knew him say that Kurt was not much of a drinker.
The fellow that Kurt went to the party with told us that Kurt had become ill. He took him outside for some air, and because it was a chilly night, he said he went upstairs to get Kurt's jacket, and he left him hanging on the fence. He said he went up to get his jacket and came back down, and Kurt was gone. Kurt? That's when I think I became hysterical. I thought, my God, something happened to him at that party or in between the party and home. Only I didn't, in my wildest dreams, expect him to turn up dead.
5 days after the party, Kurt's body was found in a ravine just 500 yards from Susan's duplex.
We have a young male, probably about 16 or 17, it looks like.
It's our belief that his body was dumped out there, and whoever the person or persons were knew the area, and they knew that people go back there and kids play back there, so eventually within a certain amount of time that he would be found.
The police searched the area for clues. They found Kurt's left shoe wedged in some nearby rocks, but they never found his right shoe. Kurt's body was taken to the coroner's office for an autopsy. It was determined that he had died only 24 to 36 hours before his body was found, which meant that he had been alive for at least 3 days after he left the party. However, the coroner could not determine the exact cause of death.
The manner of death in this particular case was signed out as probable accidental. He hadn't been beaten in any way. He hadn't been traumatized in any way. He didn't have enough alcohol to end his life. He had no pre-existing natural disease. And as Sherlock Holmes said, you eliminate all other possibilities, and that which remains is the truth. This was a diagnosis by exclusion.
I didn't believe that they couldn't tell me how Kurt died, which is immaterial to me, what they put on that piece of paper. For my peace of mind, I want to know what happened to my boy.
Dorothy began to piece together a series of strange events that occurred during the 5 days her son was missing. A friend of Kurt's named David Trusnick claimed that he saw Kurt 3 days after he disappeared. Kurt and another boy were walking along a busy street less than a mile from the Sova home.
I pulled over to offer Kurt a ride. At this point, a van pulled up, and Kurt yelled out, "Franco." They both ran over to the van, and they got in the van. I didn't know Kurt was missing. If I would have knew he was missing, there would probably been something I could have done. I could have followed the van, but I didn't know. And 2 days later, he was found dead. So that was the last time I seen him.
That same day, a stranger who had been seen around the Sova's neighborhood noticed Kurt's missing poster in the window of a local record store.
There you go. Thank you.
Okay, see you later.
All right, bye-bye. Can I help you with something?
See that picture of that boy over there?
Yeah, what about it?
You might as well take it down. I'm gonna find him dead in 2 days. Nobody's gonna know why he died.
The manager was skeptical. However, she soon had a reason to be afraid.
The next day, before the record shop had opened, he left flowers and a note. And the note said, "Roses are red, the sky is blue. They found him dead, and they'll find you too."
Police briefly questioned the man, who seemed to be mentally unstable. But there was no evidence he'd committed a crime, and he was released. By the time Kurt was found dead, the man had disappeared. But there would be another lead. On the very day Kurt's body was found, Dorothy got an early morning phone call from Susan, the woman who had the party.
She told me that someone was sleeping in her basement, and perhaps it was Kurt. And I thought, why are you calling me now after lying to me so many times? I didn't know whether to believe her or not believe her.
I proceeded to go over the house there, and I went down to the basement. And I thought maybe he was sick or he was hurt, and I figured if I got down there and found him, then maybe I could do something for him. There I found a cot that it looked like somebody had slept in there, but after searching the whole basement, I didn't find anybody in there. I have no idea if it was Kurt or not. All I know is somebody did sleep in that cot that night, and when I got there, they were gone.
I think Kurt was there. I think he was already dead in that cot. But I think they panicked and got rid of his body in that ravine.
Dorothy and Ken are certain of one thing. 24 hours before his body was found, Kurt was not in the ravine. Ken had already carefully searched there and found nothing.
I knew it wasn't there the day that I was searching. So they must have dumped it off that evening. I looked around, and I'm sure that if Kurt was down there, I would have noticed that bright yellow T-shirt that he had on against any of the terrain.
3 months after Kurt died, the mystery of his death intensified. The body of Eugene Cavett, a boy Kurt used to know, was found in another ravine on the same street just 2.5 miles from where Kurt's body was discovered. Both boys had been missing for a few days before they died, and Eugene's right shoe was also never found. The mysterious death of Kurt and Eugene leave a trail of disturbing questions, and years later, Dorothy and Ken are still searching for answers.
We still don't know any more than the day we went out looking for him. But I believe that somebody out there knows exactly what happened to Kurt, and they're just being quiet about it.
I don't think I will ever come to peace with myself until I find my answers. And if I don't find out through this program, I'll keep on searching. I'll search to the day I'm buried myself.
This case is still open and classified as a probable accident. New investigators assigned to the case are hopeful they can determine how Kurt died. If you know anything about the death of Kurt Sova or Eugene Cavett, please log on to our website at unsolved.com. Coming up, 2 men kidnap a woman from a car wash. They don't realize there were witnesses to their crime. Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Recently, we told you the story of Meredith Atkinson, who was looking for her birth mother, Rosemarie Lutner. In 1938, Rosemarie found herself pregnant and unmarried. She looked for help at a local shelter for unwed mothers in Oklahoma City. It was there that Meredith was born.
Meredith, I'd like for you to keep in mind that with adoption confidentiality...
53 years later, Meredith returned to search for clues about her past.
I found out that my mother had 1 sister and 4 brothers. They were field workers. I would like to be able to look at her and tell her, Mother, I understand.
After watching our program, a private investigator named Glenda Allen contacted Meredith and volunteered to help with her search. Just 1 month later, Meredith and her 2 children traveled from Arizona to Oklahoma after Meredith's mother, 78-year-old Rosemarie Lutner, was found.
Hi there, Walter. Walter. Glad to know you, Walter.
Meredith's uncle, Walter, Rosemarie's brother, answered the door.
And I'm at this. This is Rose. Yeah. Hi, Rose.
I think that finding my mother and seeing her and her family has brought closure to my life.
You know Marianne? Yeah.
I needed this.
You were even a great grandma. Do you know that? Sure. Yes.
I'm just tickled to death she's here. Yeah, I just wish we was closer together. We could visit a little more often, you know, but I plan to go through there and visit her in Arizona when I go see my brothers.
It's like gaining a new family, and it's like gaining new friends, too. You care if I call you Mother?
No.
No.
Most of us could never imagine that we will hear a scream in the night and find ourselves involved in a criminal investigation. And yet that's exactly what happened to 3 young men one night in Austin, Texas. At 8:55 p.m., Steve Marks was on his way to meet his 2 brothers-in-law at a friend's house. Less than a block away, he pulled behind a beige car which was moving very slowly.
I followed it down the street and I pulled in front of my friend's house. The car, in the meantime, had pulled up into the parking garage ahead of my friend's house, and my brother-in-laws arrived about a minute later.
Mike and Bill Goins had seen the same car just 2 blocks from the house, going the wrong way on a one-way street.
And when they stopped and we stopped, they looked at us like, what do we do next? And we looked at them like, okay, you fools, get out of the way. And that gave us an opportunity to see them, but unfortunately, there was no reason for us to try to memorize their faces or anything. There was just 2 people passing in the night.
5 minutes later, Mike and Bill met up with Steve. The house was just 200 feet from a 24-hour do-it-yourself car wash.
You're not going out to eat. Only go over to my house for some spaghetti. When we were on the porch, all we could see was the side of the car wash. So when we heard the scream and the car door or trunk slam, all we saw was the car pull out. As we saw the car pull out the wrong way on 5th Street, I realized that that was the same car that I had pulled behind on Powell Street and that had made the U-turn in the parking garage.
A few seconds later, Steve and Bill got to the car wash and noticed it was unusually deserted.
We walked up to the car, we saw a purse, the keys, and then Bill suggested I go back to the house and call the police because we figured something was wrong.
The owner of the abandoned car was identified as 28-year-old Colleen Reed, a certified public accountant who had lived in Austin for 4 years. Police traced Colleen's movements on the day of the crime. She had started her day by going to church and doing some volunteer work. Next, she stopped by the bank and the market. She didn't arrive at the car wash until 9:10 p.m., and that's when Colleen was kidnapped by 2 men in the tan-colored car.
I've almost convinced myself that we will someday see her again, that she's being held somewhere. And the reality is that's probably not true, but there is a possibility.
Update. The investigation led police to Alva Hank Worley and Kenneth McDuff. Worley admitted his involvement in Colleen's abduction and pleaded guilty to a charge of aggravated sexual assault. He was sentenced to 40 years in prison. However, Worley insisted he did not kill Colleen Reed. Kenneth McDuff was eventually convicted of murdering Colleen and was sentenced to death. Finally, 1 month before his execution, McDuff led police to the remains of Colleen Reed. At long last, Colleen's family could lay her to rest. Next, 2 mothers believe their children have spoken with them from beyond the grave. Fairborn, Ohio. the age of 34, Michael Tyson was a recovering alcoholic. His mother, Donna, was grateful he was attending AA meetings and holding down a steady job. But after 6 months of being sober, Michael fell off the wagon and ran into a parked truck going 65 miles an hour.
He basically died instantly. It's like a part of you's gone, and it's like there's a big hole in your heart.
It was just 2 months later in a gift shop that Donna believed she felt Michael's presence.
In the middle was a huge rack of the little porcelain cups that have your names on them from A to Z. Sitting off to one side were 2 cups, and one said, "I love you, Mom," and the other one said, "Michael." And I felt like Michael was there with me, and he was telling me it was okay.
Weeks later, while in a market, another incident. Donna was surprised when she found an out-of-place book that seemed destined for her.
And I thought, this is strange, this book, why is it sitting here? And there was no writing on the cover. And I opened it up.
I am the ancient mariner who had a tale in his heart to be told to all. To someone I am always saying, someday you must meet my mother.
It mentioned the ancient mariner, and Michael used to refer to himself as the ancient mariner. I started crying when I read it.
Donna says the most dramatic communications involve both the time of Michael's accident, 6:20, and the time of his death, 6:33. While working at home, Donna claims her digital clock was flashing 6:20, even though that wasn't the real time.
That was the time of the accident. And all the other digital clocks in the house were fine. He was just letting me know that he was there.
Donna says that 14 months after Michael's death, she heard his voice on her answering machine. The message was recorded at 6:33. It was only 2 words. Follow me.
Saturday, 6:33 p.m. Follow me. End of message.
And I was dumbfounded. I had his friends come over and listen to it. His sisters listened to it, and it is Michael's voice.
Donna is convinced that the messages from Michael are meant to bring her comfort, but others have a different explanation.
There's no greater loss than the loss of a child. Emotionally driven people in a state of grief tend to see things in their environment that connect them to their lost loved ones.
Donna's experience is not an isolated incident. There have been other similar stories. Sharon Troop believes that her daughter Wendy has appeared to her several times. Wendy was a freshman in college when she was the victim of a date rape. Shortly after, she became depressed and committed suicide. Wendy was only 19 years old. Her mother was devastated and spent the days after her daughter's death in an emotional fog. She says it was then that Wendy paid her a visit.
I was looking down a hallway, and it was very bright, and she looked at me as if to say, "I am so sorry. I made the hugest mistake, and I can't take it back." And she turned around and she walked through the door, and that was it. She was gone.
A few months later, Sharon experienced a second sighting. A friend of Wendy's named Owen rented a movie to try to lift Sharon and her husband Bill's spirits.
Something caught my eye. I looked over by the door, and Wendy was standing there. She was dressed in a real comfortable girl-type flannel shirt, and she smiled at me, and she looked over at Owen. And then she was gone. This time I didn't cry. So I honestly felt that she was letting me know that she was so pleased that Owen was spending time with us and we were together so that we could help one another.
It was the following Christmas that Sharon received what she calls definitive proof that Wendy is still with her.
You doing okay? I just really miss her.
I know, sweetie. We all do. We all miss her so much.
At a holiday party across the street from their home, Sharon and Bill were visiting with friends. But then Sharon became upset and went home.
I'm fine. I'm fine.
I wasn't home about 10 minutes, and Bill called me from across the street, and he said, I have something to tell you, and it's really important, and I want you to stay up.
When Bill returned home, he told Sharon that a friend of their neighbor claimed to have had an unusual experience involving Wendy just weeks after she died.
She saw Wendy. She just saw her face, and there weren't any words, but she was absolutely positive that it was Wendy.
It was probably about a month after Wendy had died. I saw a girl, and it was kind of just a headshot. It just kind of zoomed in on me. And I felt this tremendous energy. It kind of like if you've ever been shocked by electrical fence, you know, the little warm surge of current that you feel through your body. But I could just sense that she wanted to tell her parents that she was okay now, and she was finally at peace.
She saw her.
I think it was a gift from God. So to let her come back for us to see, because somebody could tell you that, you wouldn't believe them. Seeing something is totally different.
The real question is there actually an afterlife that people who die go to and that they're actually not gone? And if we're gonna look at this question objectively and scientifically and not emotionally, then we have to answer nobody knows.
Sharon and Donna will continue to find comfort in the messages they believe are left for them by their children.
Some people say to me, do you believe in the afterlife? Do you believe that there's something beyond? Yes, I do. If you choose not to believe that, that is your privilege. Me, I'm gonna believe it.